Yo, 60! Stop playing with him, bro!
You wanna jump on? Good morning, Scooter Gangsters. We're out on the Wolf Warrior 11 Plus Pro from KaaboUSA. These guys have outfitted an OG Wolf with Minimotors controller, Minimotors throttle and screen. It's tried and true. It rips, absolutely rips. It's got some new handlebars on it now. Really improves your handling on speed and corners. Woo! It rips super fast. We're gonna turn on a speedometer here just to double check the speed. So the speed will be here and here. Let's try it. Seems accurate enough. Let's rip it on the road here. The thing about this Wolf, it's real fast. Got 40 amp controllers in it, which is a lot. 60 volt, 35 amp hour battery is bigger than my VSET 11 Plus that I used to ride. Plenty of range and plenty of power.
I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done.
Fast, like 53 is enough to hold on this type of road where everybody drives like 45. It's enough you're not worried. We're gonna ride like another mile or so and pull over and talk about this scooter. This is definitely a buy recommendation from me, and obviously if I'm upgrading handlebars and things like that, I'm gonna keep it. It's a great scooter. I think it competes with VSET on a lot of levels, and of course speed and power most importantly. Minimotors always on point with their electronics. They created a great electronic system with the controller throttle, and then they've got many brands now using it. Looking into getting the i4 on this. This is obviously the i3. We're not sure if it's compatible, but I'm gonna try. We'll see if the plugs line up. We've got 357 miles on it right now. Riding it maybe about a month, and I think it gives me just as much miles as my VSETs. It's Kaabo. Kaabo is name brand. They've been around for a long time now, obviously, with a lot of scooters, and this is their flagship scooter for sure, the Wolf Warrior. They put a ton of time and engineering and upgrades into this. Every year a new Wolf Warrior comes out. It doesn't mean that the old Wolf Warriors are bad at all. In fact, I was just emailing them. I think that it would be amazing if they could make the new suspension for the GTR backward compatible with all the Wolves. I think a lot of people would pay for that to get hydraulic suspension in the rear of their Wolf. They don't necessarily owe their customers, right? But it's something that if they did it, it could buy a lot of customer loyalty from people that would turn into lifetime customers, I think, because there would be allowing you to drastically upgrade your couple-year-old Wolf with a new rear end that rides amazing. The reality is, when this scooter came out, it wasn't a big deal about hydraulic versus spring shocks. And these type of shocks that are in this, there's a deer, are spring shocks with like a sort of plastic cartridge thing in it. It's a consumable item, meaning that these springs will wear out and you'll have to replace that little plastic thing when it gets worn down a bit, because there'll be some play in it. It's unavoidable with this springs they're using, and I think when you use the hydraulic, it eliminates that sort of maintenance of having to change that later and upgrade your own bushings and your own springs. Other than that, I think from that standpoint, not a lot of stuff on this that you need to upgrade. Besides, obviously, on all the scooters, I think they need wider handlebars. When you add this wider couple extra inch or two on the end, may not seem like a lot, but even going down the street fast there, 50 miles an hour, it's a huge improvement to have the wider handlebars. So let's pull over and talk about this thing a bit more. It's got an incredibly solid design, and what I've always loved about the Wolves and my VSET 11s, obviously, dual stems. When you have dual stem, it's infinitely stronger, I feel like, than a single stem scooter. And for me personally, if I'm riding fast and a lot of miles, it's almost a no-brainer to buy something dual stem, because I value my life and I value my longevity. And if I'm going to ride scooters for a long time, then the odds are in my favor if I ride dual stem that I will last longer than people not riding dual stem. There is a lot of brands, I'm not going to name any, that are going through problems with their single stem scooters, high-end scooters, right? $3,000-$4,000 scooter that is falling, snapping in half. And the problem with that is that they're designing just so much power into a frame that is not strong enough. And you look at these Wolf frames, same with my VSET 11s, brick. It's like a brick house. That's like how you describe this. It does not move a millimeter of flex when you pull on it as hard as you can, and all of that plays into the stability of your ride when you're going fast and the longevity of the parts, right? When you look at a lot of these brands that are having issues with cheap parts because they've designed something that relies on every part to be really strong, because there's not a lot of over engineering to it. But you look at this Wolf, I can't even fit my hand around the majority of this stuff. Is so thick, and it has reinforced tubing around the whole edge here, and this is sort of what started off the Wolf popularity, I think, is the build quality and of the structure of the frame. It's a beautiful thing when you look at it, and we'll compare it with the VSET here too, because it is important to see the minor differences, and the minor differences really play into a major role, and this is definitely more of an off-road scooter than the VSET 11 Plus. Why? Throw you back in the garage now for a minute with the tape measure and explain. But it's a little bit shorter wheelbase, a little bit shorter handlebars, and a little bit higher clearance, and all of that plays into being better off-road. So it is definitely a purpose-built scooter where I have off-road tires they sent with me. We're going to put those on too in a bit when I run these down, and we're going to do a lot of off-road testing on this scooter as well. This is known as one of the best off-road scooters in the market. Going into it, you need to realize that it is purpose-built for being off-road, especially with the shorter wheelbase. That makes it easier to turn on off-road trails, and also with a higher clearance. When you step on the VSET 11 Plus, sinks maybe like an inch or two. We'll do a little measuring tape test here and show you exactly on both scooters what the difference is here. But mainly, the lot stiffer suspension on the Wolf means you're not sinking as much. It means your center of gravity and your weight's going to be a little bit higher on this, right? Which is good for off-roading. You've got that more clearance, but on the road, obviously, you do not want to be up higher. You want to keep your weight lower to have better handling and better cornering. So there is a little disadvantage here compared to a VSET, I think, when you ride both of them side by side, but it's not such a huge difference that I think a normal person would notice. I'm just more of at that point where I'm sort of a connoisseur of these scooters at this point, and I noticed the minor differences like that. I noticed it when I'm riding it before I even measured, right? I was riding this for at least 300 miles before I measured it the other day and realized those differences are quite extreme. 2 inches may not seem like a lot, but when you take 2 inches this way and 2 inches this way, it does affect the handling quite a bit. Alright guys, like all my reviews, we'll start from the handlebars and work our way down. Welcome to Scooter Gang if you're new. This is a Kaabo Wolf Warrior. This scooter's been out for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or something. Been through a lot of updates. and a lot of user feedback because this is a very popular scooter. I know most of you probably heard of this scooter. A lot of you probably tried this scooter. And across the board, I think most people find this scooter very good. It's important for me to get a scooter like this in and test it out, get the review there, and keep it as a baseline. And to me, the most important thing obviously is the dual stems, and to compare this with my VSET 11 Plus that I rode for a couple years, as well as my VSET 11 Plus Super that I have now. Very, very, very sturdy, great scooters. Dual stem scooters are the best, in my opinion, for safety and speed. This has a purple handlebar on it that did not come stock. Put that on yesterday. This is significantly longer than the stock bar. You will notice when you get this scooter that the stock bar is a little bit uncomfortable to me. Even I have relatively narrow shoulders. I'm not a huge guy, so a lot of you bigger guys, even, it's gonna feel like it's not wide enough, and so you're gonna swap this out. This bracket here, it almost seemed like it didn't fit when I started putting it on, but you can slowly sort of clamp it all down and make it fit, and it's very, very secure now, and we'll be testing that more. I did also get some off-road tires for this that are going to go on next, and then some PMT tires are going to go on after that. So we're going to test this fully with the different tires. I think that with the PMTs, it's going to be very hard to, this versus the VSET, they're both going to be like a 10 out of 10. There's not a lot of difference then at that point. They're extremely powerful, extremely smooth, extremely agile. Let's start here, as we already talked a bit about this Minimotors throttle, Minimotors electronics built into a Wolf frame. So it's a bit of a hybrid scooter from that standpoint, where it's not just a Kaabo, it's a Kaabo with Minimotors electronics. And so you're gonna have this i3, it's very smooth. I had this on a Curus NF Plus that I tested 2 years ago. It is a good throttle. It is just as good as, say, the VSET stock throttle that they had for 2 years. Response is smooth enough that I can do this without ripping my arms off, right? Some scooters you can't do that even right here, but it's not as smooth as some others. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10 on the throttle mapping. So it's good enough you can control it, but it could definitely be improved some more. The spacing of it is decent. It does have the zoom brakes, which if you're familiar with the zoom versus the nut brakes, the zoom has this extra little hump right here. You combine that with some of these throttles like this, right? It restricts how close you can put the brake in the throttle. So you do have to leave it about this far apart, which is a bit restrictive. And that's a bit of advantage of the nut brake or of the new throttle that some brands are designing that curls a bit more around this. One downside to this is that the gap here is not really customizable in any way. You're pretty much stuck with this large of a gap between these two. The grips that come on this are actually very good. I like these type of grips where there's two different locking rings right here. It makes it very tight and nothing's moving around ever. They're relatively comfortable. I do think some people might upgrade these for better ones, but I think a lot of people probably use them the whole life of the scooter because they're pretty good. This bell and this phone mount are not applicable to this scooter. We'll just ignore that right now. We have an eco and a turbo button here. I hardly ever use that. And a single dual, I think I used the single once in some traffic the other day, some pedestrian traffic, and it's very useful if you need to go really, really slow, but you don't want to use that long range because your front motor will resist and it's gonna overheat, cause other problems. So you really want to run it in dual motor at all times, especially when you get used to it. Same little button module here on the right is also on the left, and it has the horn, which doesn't appear to be working. Oh, the scooter's not even on. Okay, here's the horn. Horn is similar to the VSET horn that's on my 11 Pluses. Decent little horn. I think there's louder horns, but there's obviously worse horns. I do think if you're going to be riding on a bike path, you want to add some kind of bell as well, because a lot of times the horn is not going to be something you want to use crossing against pedestrians on a bike path. That's more for the road, right? So you have something else for the bike path is really useful to you. Now the headlights, one button here. I'm going to show you this. Headlights are great for in the night. They do not have a cutoff, so they do kind of blind people a little bit. But the thing is, 12 LEDs, 6 here. No, Yeah, 6 here on each side, and it is super bright. You do not need another light with this scooter, which is rare. A lot of scooters, I'd say the majority of scooters, you need to get another light to ride at night. But with this one, it is plentiful of light that you don't feel like that at all, that you need to buy another light. It is expensive to buy more lights, a couple extra $100 to get a good light. So it's nice when a scooter comes with sufficient headlights. Now, one thing that is very cool about this headlight that I noticed, somebody used it in some traffic in Denver on their TikTok. I think it was e-scooter red. Anyways, check this out. If you double click it, you can turn it into a flashing hazard light, right? So what happened was, on this guy's TikTok, somebody turned the wrong way on a one-way, and he turned it onto flashing mode, and it flashed them, warned the people to stop, that they were going the wrong way coming towards him, right? So it's a useful function from that way, that you can use it to strobe light people that may be coming at you down the wrong way on a one-way or something like that. It's a scenario that doesn't happen a lot, obviously, but it could be useful. I do think these buttons are laid out well, because these ones you're not going to use too much. These ones you're going to use relatively a lot. So it is nice that the more important functions are here with your left thumb, and because your right hand is pretty much always busy with your scooter when you have your throttle and your brakes and everything here, and your left hand has more leftover space here for the important stuff like the light and the horn. It's well laid out. From that standpoint, there's some scooters the buttons are just not smartly laid out and not big enough to hit with the glove on, but this is not that way at all. These are good buttons, and it's well laid out to the point where, like, some of these buttons I'll click the light on at the beginning of a ride and not turn it off the whole ride, right? You don't even need to use a lot of these while you're riding. It's more of just set it up and go with this scooter, which is how it should be. Not really messing around with stuff while you're on it. Talked a little bit about these brakes. Zoom brakes. Zoom brakes have one advantage over nut brakes that not a lot of people talk about, and they can handle a 3mm thick rotor. And the deal is with my VSET 11 pluses, my biggest complaint with it is that the 2mm thick rotors on that burn out really quickly. I'm already on my third rotors on that, and I'm at about 1,600 miles. So it is extremely abusive to the rotors on that scooter because they're thinner. This has thicker rotors, so you're gonna get way more life out of these. I haven't had any sort of issue where the rotors are looking totally in need of being changed. They actually look brand new right now still when looking at them. There's a lot more e-braking on this scooter as well than on the VSETs. I think the VSETs are just a lot more, how would I describe it? I feel like the main difference is, like, the VSETs are tuned to like 80 to 90% of their capability, right? Just to be a little bit on the safe side, so there's a little bit less overheating, and that's like the purpose of the boost and all that, right? But the Kaabos, on the other hand, are maxed out. Like the Mantis King GT I rode, this thing same way. They're just extremely fast, as fast as you can make this sort of 60-volt system. Now, one thing about these bars is it obviously eliminates that crossbar, which allows you to get your head a lot lower here, and that does make a big difference when you're going fast and you're in your crouch. If you're gonna go fast on the scooter, I do recommend definitely getting something without that crossbar, just from that standpoint alone. Obviously, the wider it is, the better it is too, from a standpoint of stability at speed. It doesn't have to be purple, but get another handlebar for your scooter. We talked about everything on the cockpit here. Let's move down a little bit. I think, yes, they sent me with this bag. Hopefully yours comes with one too. Nice bag, sits right above the headlights. The horn's right below that. This is a nice spot for it. Nice and loud. Most of the mud and stuff won't get on it. Moving further down, this is one reason that I ended up buying originally 2 years ago my VSET 11 Plus over this was the folding mechanisms. When you look at it, obviously the folding mechanism is built into here, into what's called the neck of the scooter, and in the VSET it's built into the dual stem, so it's up here is where it folds. To me, from my standpoint, back in the day, I was always thought that if something's going to break, it's going to be this one where it's built into the neck itself, and versus the VSET one where it's built in up here, there's not as much stress on this as there is down here. But obviously I was wrong. This sort of design has held up extremely well over the years. There's not a lot, if any, stories or Facebook posts about these wolves breaking in this area. I think from the design standpoint, they might might be geniuses, and this might actually be one of the best folding mechanisms on the market. It hasn't come loose even to millimeter on me, and we've been riding the crap out of it right now, 300 whatever miles. Very nice. There is a complaint about this little chain here being cheap and breaking, but this is the first time I've even taken this out of here, so there we go. That's interesting. Anyways, the folding mechanism on this might be damn perfect, and that's saying a lot, because the V-Set one I do think is also damn perfect. It's not meant for speed, it's not meant for that, it's meant for stability, right? You fold this once in a while, you're not fold this every day when you drive to work. That's not reasonable to think you're going to do that. It takes a minute or two, right? It takes a little time, a little muscle. It folds and it folds and then it unfolds, and then it's very extremely sturdy, right? That is what really matters. Who cares about how quick it folds on a scooter like these high-end scooters? It is more about how well it folds, and that is where they've done a great job with this. Several safety mechanisms here. As you see before, you could even fold this back, and at this point I think it's great. It's great for me, put it that way. I don't even like folding these type of scooters anyways. When they're this big, you just roll it in the garage, roll it back out when you want to ride it, right? Like, why even fold such a thing unless you're going on a vacation and you really want to bring it? From that standpoint, a smaller 10-inch scooter is better. So you're on a vacation, why do you need all the speed? You really just need the portability, and a 40-30 mile an hour scooter is plenty for that. There is like a diminishing returns, right? Obviously, do a lot of things in life, and this is one of those where the bigger you get, the less portable it's going to be. This is more of a hometown scooter where you just ride it around, leave it in your garage all the time and take it out. Never fold it. You know, honestly, I think the more you fold and unfold any safety mechanism, right, will get worn down. And so if you just leave it and never fold it, it will stay the strongest, in my opinion. Just as my 2 cents. Now, moving down a bit more, this came with road tires, tubeless tires on this. That is something that worries me. I'm not gonna lie. I bought the V-Set 11 Plus originally because it is tube tires that are split rim, right? And the deal is, a lot of these scooters have split rim where it comes apart, and it makes tire changes quite easy, I would say. In the scheme of things, it takes a little bit of time, but it does not take a lot of muscle or crazy tools, right? You can do it with a few wrenches and Allen wrenches and whatever. With these tires, they're tubeless, so they take a bit more energy and finesse to get them to seat on the rim when you're changing the tire. What I'm saying is that you need a high pressure air compressor at the very least, and you need a lot of muscle and skill, probably some zip ties, ratchet straps, a bit other things. There's a lot of different methods people use for this, and that's the thing. There's not even like an official way to change these tires. It's sort of like figure it out yourself, dude. And so from that standpoint, it's not quite the same user friendliness. Even as my Super, which annoys me to change the tire because I have to go in and unplug wires from the deck from the motors, right? It's not perfect at all. I'm not saying the Super tire changes is better. I'm just saying that this one is particularly sucks. In the world of tire changes, there's definitely some that are decent and some that are worse, and this is one of the worst ones. And I'm not saying that that's a reason you shouldn't buy the scooter. I'm just saying you need to know ahead of time that you're gonna need to invest a bit more muscle. And so if you have a shop near you that'll do the tire changes, that is key on this scooter, because you do not want to do the tire changes yourself if you are a novice and you have no clue what you're doing. I don't even look forward to this tire change, and I've changed probably 20 different scooter tires at this point, and this is the least I'm looking forward to doing one at this point. And I told them I would. I have the off-road tires sitting there on my shelf, and I'm gonna have to do it in the next week or two. But like I said, doesn't mean I'm looking forward to it just because I have to do it. And it's gonna be a video. We'll take a look and see exactly how people are doing this, what's the best way, and maybe we'll explore a couple different methods. We'll do one method for the front tire, one method for the back tire, sort of thing. See what's the easiest way to really change these tires, because obviously that is a huge component. In a power scooter like this, you're spinning the tires quite a bit, you're braking really hard, right? You're using up tread more than on a little small scooter, and for that reason, like, you do need to change the tires at the very least every year, you know, maybe twice a year. And so it's something that's going to add time and energy and all of that. Now we move down. Hydraulic shocks on the front, it's got springs on the back. If you guys have seen the new GTR, it has hydraulic rear end now, and I hope Kaabo will make that that, backwards compatible. That would make this scooter perfect as far as the ride quality. Right now it's very good. I do like the durability of these springs. It does not worry me when you're hit this scooter hard on bumps. A lot of other scooters you sort of go over and you're like, well, is this going to be the one that ends me? And you definitely don't have that feeling with this. You go over things with ease and it's pretty smooth. I wouldn't say it's close to the V-set. I think the V-set edges it out there on how well the suspension handles everything, but I think it's a good 7 out of 10. It's a solid suspension, and especially for the speeds this is going, it handles it very well. I would like to upgrade this. I would like to keep the scooter, upgrade the rear end with that, and I hope that all works out. I think for its purposes for off-roading, how it's designed mainly for that, it is perfect for that. And so if you get this scooter, probably get the off-road tires with it, go on the trails and stuff, that's gonna be fantastic. And so stick around for the next review. This is obviously only part of the review. In 300 miles or so, I'll change the tires, and then we'll do a bunch of off-roading and sort of talk about the off-roading more on the scooter. Obviously for now, I've been riding on the street mostly with the street tires. Now coming down the rest of the way, talked about all of this, mainly the fenders on this a little bit could be tightened up a little over there with my end. They're decent, especially the back one. All of this, I haven't ridden in anything wet. I usually don't, but I think these would be decent fenders in wet. Hard to know about this one. It's so far from the tire, it probably won't block too much, but I think for off-roading, this is what this is really designed for. They'll be good for mud and blocking dirt and whatever, gravel, stuff like that. Anything that kicks up from the tire definitely will keep you from getting plastered from it, which is the main thing, right? You can kind of see right here that this kind of sprays up onto this and may even spray up onto this part a little bit here. So that's something I'm gonna take a better look at here, maybe watertight some of that more. If you ride in mostly dry conditions, it's not a huge issue. We'll get some measurements on the deck here for you. This does have a power button here on the side, as well as 2 charging ports. You can dual charge this, 35 amp hour battery, so even with 2 charges it takes a while. You're talking 10 hours, 15 hours, because it's a huge battery. It's almost inevitable. The bigger the battery, the longer it takes. There's no way around that. Yeah, you can buy a fast charger, but that's gonna degrade your battery faster, and it's definitely better to trickle charge with a few amps, so keep that all in mind. This takes a while to charge. Cheap to charge though, you're talking about a kilowatt hour or 2, especially if you only drain it to half. So I think that it's such a good investment. The amount of enjoyment and miles you get out of a scooter like this is nuts. There's not a lot of lights and other fanciness on this scooter. This is literally the scooter designed to go fast, be super strong, be sturdy. Exactly what you need when you're looking for a scooter like this. That's what you want. Scooter's so fun. You gotta be super careful, guys. Flying corners and shit like this will get you. You really gotta be slowing down a lot. So unless you got open visibility and perfect traction. That's really nice turning from that shorter wheelbase there. You can make tight turns easily, even with these super wide handlebars. Let's go test this hill over here. We'll do the exact same test we did on the Nan Robot. Hill test on the Wolf Warrior 11 Plus Pro 60 volt Minimotors edition. We're running start from here. Ready to go? 26, 25, I let off. Hits 25 easily up that hill.